Maggie's fingers brushed dusty binoculars wedged behind winter coats. Same pair she'd tossed aside after wildfire smoke choked Seattle's skies. 57 years old and suddenly useless, or so she'd thought. Now, clutching them farmer's market between kale and kombucha, she spotted a flyer. Urban Bird Fam needs you. No scientists, just neighbors tracking wing survivors. Her laugh startled a sparrow. Grief had weighed her down like wet wool. But these birds? They gave zero fucks about climate doom. And maybe, just maybe Maggie's fingers curled around those binoculars, their weight familiar as regret. 20 years ago, they'd been a birthday gift from her ex, back when hope still perched in her chest like a stubborn wren. Now, they were just another relic in a condo full of almosts. Outside, Seattle's drizzle-blurred skyline, same as her vision these days, not from tears, though there'd been plenty, but from staring too long headlines screaming doom. Climate grief had settled into her bones like arthritis, sharpest on rainy mornings. But today, she fumbled lenses into focus. A flash of movement, a junco darting between market umbrellas Pike Place. Its hops were messy, determined. Relatable, Maggie snorted. She'd tripped over her own boots last week, chasing a rumor of warblers. Still, something about tracking scrappy town birds, their refusal to vanish, itched her. That evening, she Googled Urban Birdwatching Fam Seattle with thumbs that still mistyped. Turns out, half her farmer's market crowd met Sundays to log species for some climate database. First meetup, Maggie clutched her bins like a shield, expecting glossy gear and jargon. Instead, she got a retired teacher tracking crows via their pizza crust thefts and a barista who ID'd sparrows by their cheater-beater chirps. Data entry was mostly scribbling on damp napkins between sips of terrible gas station coffee. But each tally, 1 osprey, 3 bouche tits, endless gulls, felt like whispering back to world, I see you trying. Her deepest fear? That she'd become background noise herself, another gray ghost in a town barreling toward collapse. But birds didn't care about her creaky knees or way she mispronounced how Maggie's fingers brushed dusty binoculars wedged behind winter scarves, their weight familiar yet foreign after years tucked away. Retirement had left her adrift between grocery runs and bad daytime TV, but spotting a flash of cerulean outside her kitchen window, a Stellar's J, bold as you please, jolted something loose. Next thing she knew, she was fumbling with focus knobs on a park bench, cursing under her breath as her bifocals fought with lenses. Seattle's drizzle couldn't dampen thrill when she finally locked onto a bouche tit's nest, its mossy pouch swaying like a tiny hammock. A chuckle bubbled up as she nearly toppled off bench. Grace had never been her strong suit, and 57 years hadn't helped. Nearby, a woman in a raincoat splattered with embroidered chickadees arched an eyebrow. Rookie move, she said without malice, adjusting Maggie's grip with practiced ease. Turns out, City hid a whole flock of bird nerds who met farmers' markets, trading sightings over cinnamon rolls. Maggie's kitchen calendar soon brimmed with outings, tracking barred owls in Discovery Park, logging crow roosts for a university study, even laughing through a failed attempt to mimic a varied thrush's eerie whistle. Binoculars became more than tools. They were lifelines, grounding her when headlines spun doom. Learning Merlin ID app shortcuts? Frustrating. Spotting her first Rufus hummingbird? Worth every misclick. One damn morning, her new fam nudged her toward leading a workshop for seniors. You've got vibe, said Chickadee Code, winking. Maggie balked. Since when did she teach anything? But standing before a circle of eager faces, she realized grief had tricked her into thinking her story was over. Here, with lenses trained on a Cooper's hawk perched atop a street lamp, was proof wonder didn't retire. By summer, her notebooks overflowed with scribbled observations, not just birds, but shifts in bloom times, squirrel behaviors, way ivy crept earlier up brick walls. Science needed these scraps, sure, but Maggie needed them more. Each entry was a quiet rebellion against despair, a reminder that paying attention could be its own kind of hope. Maggie tugged those binoculars free with a stubborn grunt, leaving cobwebs clinging to her knuckles like nature's way of saying about damn time. 57 years old, and she'd forgotten how heavy hope could feel in her hands. Outside her Seattle apartment, a crow cackled from a power line, either mocking her hesitation or cheering her on. Hard to tell with corvids. She'd signed up for Urban Bird Collective on a whim after spotting their flyer between kombucha stalls and overpriced kale farmers market. Turned out half her birdwatching fam were retirees armed with iPhones and decades of neighborhood gossip. They met under dripping awnings, trading tips on distinguishing sparrow calls from car alarms. Maggie's first attempt logging sightings ended with her misidentifying a pigeon as a rare gerfalcon. Group's chat erupted in teasing emojis, but someone slid into her DMs. Happens to best of us. Try again tomorrow. Mornings became about more than doom-scrolling wildfire maps. Maggie learned to spot subtle shifts, how juncos vanished before rain, how crows staged tiny rebellions against street sweepers. Her notebook filled with scribbles. March 14th, 7:32 a.m. Stellar's J near dumpster. Loud as my ex's politics. Each entry felt like pressing a thumb against pulse of something still fighting. Then came weaker data overlapped with a grad student's pollution study. Turns out birds avoided blocks with worst air quality, tiny feathered canaries in a corporate coal mine. Next meetup, a researcher clapped her on shoulder. Your logs just helped map a microhabitat. Maggie's face burned hotter than her menopause flashes. Those binoculars weren't just nostalgia anymore. They were a weapon against gnawing fear that she'd run out of time to matter. Rain or shine now, she walked her route. Some days grief still lapped her ankles like rising tides, but she'd stare it down through scratched lenses, whispering not today to chickadees and herself. Maggie's fingers brushed dusty binoculars wedged behind winter scarves, their weight familiar yet foreign after years tucked away. Retirement had left her adrift, headlines about melting glaciers gnawing her like a persistent crow. But that morning, sunlight caught on cracked lenses, and something stubborn flickered in her chest. Seattle's farmers market became her battleground. Between kale stalls and artisan honey, she rallied a ragtag crew of silver-haired skeptics and young moms with strollers. Birdwatching's not just for nerds and vests, she'd say, flashing those binoculars like a badge. They called themselves urban peregrines, half joke, half defiance. Notebooks in hand, they logged every sparrow, every defiant crow nesting in skyscraper vents. Data for climate researchers, yes, but really? It was armor against despair. Then came her big swing. City Hall's drab community board needed engagement. She hijacked it with a guerrilla exhibit. Winged witnesses, blown-up photos of their feathered neighbors alongside handwritten notes. Mr. Blue Jay seen building nest with plastic ribbons. Adapt or die, fam. A chuckle rippled through crowd, until one photo stopped them cold. A bald eagle, talons gripping a fast food wrapper, its glare sharper than any protest sign. A local reporter snapped it. By dusk, Trash Eagle trended. Suddenly, Maggie's flip phone blew up with texts. Did you see Mayor's tweet? Across room, Edna, her most vocal skeptic, bird census won't unmelt icebergs, she stood frozen before display. Her knobby fingers hovered over a shot of chickadees huddled in a rusted gutter. Damn, she muttered. They're all just trying to make it work. Like us. Chest tight, woman adjusted her binoculars, not to scan treetops, but to hide sting in her eyes. This scrappy, silly project had claws. It wasn't saving planet, but it was stitching her back into its fabric. Behind her, someone clapped. Then a dozen more. Edna's slow nod felt like a medal. Later, as twilight painted Puget Sound gold, Maggie spotted a heron-stalking waterfront. She grinned. This is my start. 57, slightly creaky, and absolutely not done. Maggie's fingers brushed dusty binoculars wedged behind winter coats, relics of a life before climate dread hollowed her days. 57, she'd spent months doom-scrolling wildfire maps, until one soggy Seattle morning, a flash of cerulean outside her window, a Stellar's J, yanked her into motion. She lugged those binoculars to a farmer's market, where a woman in a hand-knit hat, pattern, angry puffins, waved her over. Spotted a barred owl and ballard, Stranger said, as if sharing classified intel. Maggie's first mission with Urban Birdwatching Collective began with a crumpled checklist and a snort laugh, her own rusted bird call impression. Weeks later, Maggie's apartment bloomed with scribbled notes, crow migration patterns, a rogue parakeet flock thriving near a taco truck. She guided newbies to her magic bench where eagles dive-bombed Bay Sunset, grinning as retirees and teens alike gasped in unison. Her binoculars, now dangling from a hand-painted strap, courtesy of a 10-year-old collective member, became a baton passed between strangers turned fam. Even her odd habit, tossing sunflower seeds to sparrows while muttering work emails, morphed into a ritual that made kids giggle and neighbors pause. By summer, collective data had tagged 17 new nesting sites, nudging city planners to protect a wetland. But Maggie's real victory flickered in moments, a widow whispering, "Didn't think joy still grew here," as a hummingbird zipped past, or her own heartbeat syncing with woodpecker taps instead of panic alerts. Grief hadn't vanished, but purpose had shouldered in, feather by feather. Your turn. Binoculars optional. Wonder required. Track hope where you stand.